our webinar today on traditional organics recycling solutions, opportunities for partnership with agriculture. Well, welcome or welcome back if this is not your first time with us to our Thursday morning chats at 11 a.m. We have heard from our audience that you want to hear more SB1383 solutions, and that's the content we're bringing you. So today we're going to get started with the first part of our two-part series on traditional organics recycling solutions for 1383. This webinar is meant to be more on the education side. So just educating folks about material types and pathways within agriculture. And we're really excited about the list of presenters we have today. We have folks from the California Department of Food and Agriculture, as well as the people that are in the field actually implementing these traditional organics recycling methods. So really excited for our webinar series. The first one today, and the second one will be on December 9th. And the second one is going to be more focused on implementation. Now that we know about these pathways, how do we make sure we support them in our SB 1383 plans? If you don't know, if you're new here, I'm Rochelle. I am the principal and co-owner of Diversion Strategies, along with my partner, Erin Merrill. And we are a consulting firm in the solid waste and recycling industry based in Sacramento. We service both public and private organizations, and we specialize in connecting innovators and solutions in organics recycling to implementers like you and local government. And one way we do that is by offering these free educational webinars on all things solid waste and recycling. And if you are not signed up for our listserv, you can do that by emailing admin@diversionstrategies.com, and we can get you on our listserv so you know when these webinars are coming up. And also we'll be reaching out to you on other important topics, like for example, folks that are on here today that are in local government and are implementing SB 1383 and working on your plans. Did you know that the state legislature and the governor approved $60 million in grant funds for jurisdictions to implement SB 1383 over the next year? So CalRecycle is looking at what are the programs that these funds should go to, to help support. So Diversion Strategies will be sending a link out to our listserv very soon, trying to better understand from implementers like you, what are the pain points, what are the challenges, where can funds be directed that would help support your programs toward compliance the best way. So look out for that email. That's going to be coming shortly. But without further ado, I do want to get started on today's webinar. And the first panelist that we have up today is the California Department of Food and Agriculture is going to help us better understand the material types in agriculture and the pathways in agriculture that these materials can go toward for organics recycling. And the first, and if I can ask Rochelle and Samantha to go ahead and come up on the screen. Hi, Rochelle. And I'm actually, hold on one second here. I think I have to make Samantha a co-host. Okay. And then Samantha, you should be able to access your video camera now. Sorry about that. Okay. Samantha and Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us from the California Department of Food and Agriculture and the Feed Inspection Division. Rochelle, she graduated from the University of California, Davis with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Animal Science and Management. She's worked for CDFA and agriculture since 2005. She's a senior environmental scientist supervisor in the feed, Fertilizer and Livestock Drug Regulatory Services branch. She spent 11 years working for the animal health branch before moving over to this. So really a robust experience in feed and grain and agriculture, and on the government side of that. And then Samantha Moran-Defty has worked at CDFA within the commercial feed regulatory program since 2013 and graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a bachelor's in animal science, and has been working as an inspector since 2013 and worked focusing mainly on the FDA Food Safety Modernization Act. So definitely at the forefront of some of these conversations. In 2021, Rochelle transitioned to the commercial feed regulatory program as a program lead. So thank you, Rochelle and Samantha, for joining us. And as I mentioned, Samantha and Rochelle will be talking today about material types and pathways. And I am going to get to their graphic here. Can everybody see that graphic? Rochelle and Samantha, you see the, okay. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys. You're going to run through this, and we'll see you back after you're done.
Awesome, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so my name is Samantha Moran-Defty. I'm the Commercial Feed Regulatory Program. I was just going to do a quick rundown of some of the ways that human food byproducts make their way into our livestock feed industry and our livestock feeding operations. I want to just preface this is in no way an all-inclusive list. This is just kind of an overview of some of the common pathways of these agricultural and human food byproducts. So in starting, one of the methods is consumer direct. So this would be products going directly to a livestock feeding operation. This would be products like wet food processing waste coming from a human food manufacturing facility, cull fruits and vegetables from either retail or processors, whey from milk plants, recovered retail food, expired pet food. This would be something that would go only to non-ruminant animals like swine or poultry. And then direct cull fruits, vegetables, nuts, things that are field rejects that don't ever make it to the human food processing facility, but they are grown for the purposes of human food. So that's one of the pathways, and these would go to either a swine operation, a dairy operation, or they could go to any type of animal feeding operation. We also have the way of processors with a collection facility. So these are places that maybe collect recovered retail foods, restaurant food waste, wet food processing waste. They might collect products that are expired and some salvaged pet food products, and then they might do some sort of processing to those products before they then enter the livestock feed distribution. We also have products that go to feed mills for further manufacturing into finished diets. This would be more dried products for the most part, like dried food processing byproducts, whey, sometimes some of the more traditional feedstuffs like canola, soybean, rice bran, distillers, dried grains, just some of the dried products that come from human food or even industrial byproducts. And then nut meals and hulls like almond, walnut, and pistachio. So these are products that go from the processors to a feed mill, get mixed into a full ration, and then get fed at a livestock feeding facility. And then finally, rendering, which really takes a lot of, really all of our raw meat products that are requiring an elimination step, fats and oils, and a lot of commercial food waste. And then they process that and turn it into a foodstuff for our livestock industry. So, yeah. If there are any questions or.
Yeah, thank you, Samantha, for running us through that. I forgot to mention before, but we are using the Q&A function like we usually do on these webinars. So anyone who has any questions, please run them through the Q&A. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session where your questions will get answered. Erin is taking them down and will facilitate a question and answer at the end. So if you're wondering how this applies to you, or have some questions about the different material types or pathways, please feel free to put it into the Q&A. And Samantha and Rochelle will be back after our other presenters to answer any of your questions on that. All right, well, thank you, Samantha and Rochelle, for that. And I'm going to stop sharing. And I am going to ask Matteighton to join us. So now what we're going to do is, now that CDFA has broken down the material types and the different pathways within agriculture, we are going to now be showing you some examples of how this actually works in the field and who is implementing these types of organics recycling methods and pathways in the field. And first up, we have Matteighton. And Matt, he was raised on a family farm in Central California and graduated from Stanford University in 2002. I think this is pretty cool. He played professional baseball for the Chicago Cubs organization 2002 through 2007, and then began working at JD High School as a fibers trader in July of 2008 through now. And he's well known in the industry. That's why we've invited him here today. He's currently the vice president of the California Grain and Feed Association, and he's also on the board of the Cottonseed and Feed Association. So Matt is going to be talking to us a little bit about how our agricultural byproducts make its way into animal feed, which is an approved recycling method in SB1383, is organics to animal feed. So Matt is going to take us on a little journey through that process. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. I am going, if you want to go ahead and pull up your presentation now.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for the introduction, Rochelle.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Today I'm going to speak. I'm going to give you guys a 20,000-foot view of traditional organic recycling as it pertains to our industry and what it is we do. And to start with, what is agricultural recycling? Essentially, it's the upcycling of a co-product or a byproduct for a more productive use than is currently happening in the marketplace. And these types are not limited to these, but you've got agricultural co and byproducts, you've got food diversion, you've got food co and byproducts, industrial co and byproducts, and then there's some niche products that kind of fall under, kind of get lumped together. I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of each one of these and volumes associated with them, so you understand what products are included in here. California agricultural co and byproducts, the yearly estimated volume that we have here in California that is already being diverted is about 12.4 million tons. That includes grain and rice milling, nut crops, which primarily are almond, pistachio, and walnuts in California, cottonseed and all the byproducts associated with that, as well as sunflower and safflower meal. This right here is a picture of an almond facility in Wasco, California, and it's just given a visual for right here what they're doing. They're hulling the almonds to extract the meat and the shell, as well as the almond hull itself, which we use the hulls for animal feed, the shell for bedding or road base. California food diversion, roughly 7.4 million tons is already being diverted into animal feed. That includes dried bakery and cereal goods, cold fruits and pits, as well as cold vegetables. And it's really kind of a neat story as far as that industry. These are products that a lot of them are, slightly blemished, or that you have sizing problems. So instead of going to Costco or your Walmart for human consumption, they're culled out, and we're diverting that product directly into animal feed. And it's a very good use. Here's a picture right here. These are cuties that didn't make grade. They were either undersized, oversized, or had blemishes. And so, that product, we partner with these processing facilities to handle this overflow product. Moving on to California food, and byproducts. Yearly estimated volume there is 3.2 million tons, and that includes wine and juice production, breweries. You've got quite a few of those in California, as well as olive, tomato, sugar, milk, and cheese. And when they're making wine and pressing the grapes, they're creating grape pumice as an end byproduct. Here's a picture of what grape pumice looks like. When they're making beer, the byproducts move into the animal food chain as brewer's grains and high quality feed. And we utilize pretty much every ton that's coming out gets utilized into the feed industry. We also have industrial and byproducts, yearly volume there, 4.5 million tons. And that includes ethanol production as well as fat and vegetable oil. And the ethanol plants, they'll grind the corn, extract the alcohol that they're going to make the ethanol with, and then the spent corn is called wet distillers grains. It's a picture of it right here, and that is then diverted directly into cattle rations up and down the state of California. All right, so that's a kind of a quick overview of the types of diversion, but how does it work is the more important part. And so without our industry, these products currently would go to compost, they would go to landfill, or they'd be spread out in fields and hillsides because there's no other diversion for them. But because of us, they're going into poultry, pork, beef, and dairy feed rations. They're used for bedding, road base, make fireplace logs out of them, fertilizer, abrasives, makeup, alcohol. The list goes on and on and on. How these products find a second life that's more valuable than going to compost or landfill. California is very unique, and the reason it's unique is we have such a wide variety of co and byproducts that are created because of the amount of agriculture that happens in the state. Not only that, but we have beef lots, and we have large dairy shed, as well as poultry and pork that are able to consume these byproducts. So not only are we able to produce the byproduct, but then we have a natural built-in outlet to service that industry that a lot of other states don't have. And so we're quite unique in that regard. And we have the infrastructure in place to move these products. There's feed mills up and down the state that have spent time and money to build their business around this industry to support it and to help these processing facilities handle the goods that are created. The other part is that agriculture inherently operates on very thin margins. And so there's an incentive to maximize every aspect of the good that's created and for the good of the industry. And so it really becomes a necessary component when they're making ethanol. It's a crush margin. They're having to make sure that they can sell their wet distiller grains for a high enough value. And that becomes part of the component along with the actual product itself, which is the ethanol. Benefits of agricultural recycling. That's what's most interesting about this. Because of our industry and how we're diverting these products already, it helps the processor become more profitable because sending product to compost or to landfill is typically done at an expense to the processor. We step in, and those products now have a feed value, and it's worth, every product is different, but they're worth an amount. And so a processor goes from paying to have something hauled off to being paid for me to haul it off, or someone in the industry. And so it's a significant savings for them. And as a repercussion, it allows them to lower costs for the consumers because their overhead is less. So the consumer of the primary product actually gets that primary product at a more valuable rate because of our industry. Not only that, but it's a better use of the product. Feed that is recycled doesn't have to be grown. An interesting fact is that 40% of the greenhouse gases that are created by animals are from the agricultural production of the crops used to feed that animal. So if you're diverting the food waste or the food byproduct or whatever into an animal's ration, then they no longer, that product does not have to be grown. Every ton that gets diverted is a ton that does not now have to be grown. So that helps lower the carbon footprint, lower the ESG score, and it keeps landfill down. So it's a win-win-win. Not only that, but it supports California jobs and industry. And it's been happening in California for quite some time. Like I said, the industry is well built out and is in a great position to sustain and support this industry.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. I think it's a great overview of what your company, but also the industry, how it helps support organics recycling and our agricultural industry, making prices lower for consumers and disposal less all around. So thank you, Matt, for that. I certainly learned a lot from you. So coming up next, we have Michael Kohler, and Michael is the president of Sacramento Rendering, and he is a leader in the rendering industry. Michael he's the fourth generation owner in the rendering industry, and therefore he has a lot of vision and participates in leadership roles in a lot of ways. He's the former president of the National Renderers Association and the Pacific Coast Rendering Association, and he's also a board member on the California Department of Food and Agriculture's rendering board. And Michael spends a lot of his time educating folks about the industry and the importance of the industry. And that's what he's here to do today as well. So Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you, and just let me know when you want the slides to turn. We'll do that.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for that introduction, and welcome everybody, and good morning to you. Here to talk about rendering, which is near and dear to my heart. What is rendering? Rendering is recycling. I mean, I always say that we were green before green was cool, because we really satisfy the needs of a lot of different allied industries, from animal agriculture to also now the biofuels market. So 50% of the animal that we don't consume has to go somewhere. If it went to landfill or compost, we'd really have a mess on our hands. It's been estimated that if the rendering industry ceased to operate, that within 4 years, every landfill in the country would be full to its capacity. So when you break down rendering, it's really the collection, the processing of co-products, like I said, that otherwise would be wasted, and recycling them into usable products that we are in our everyday lives constantly interacting with. Next slide, Rachel, please. The story of rendering, like I said, starts with the leftover co-products from the animal agriculture industry, as well as supermarkets, meat lockers, restaurants, butcher scraps, all that material that is not consumed by the public then goes to a rendering plant where it's converted into two main products, a fat component and a protein component. The protein component, which is about 50% protein, so it's got a lot of nourishment in it, traditionally has gone into animal feed rations and pet food rations. As of really in the past 3 or 4 years, that protein fraction of our finished product has been slowly facilitating and fostering a relationship with the organic fertilizer markets, and a lot of those proteins now are finding their way into fertilizer rations up and down the state of California. In California, there's about 56 to 60 billion pounds of raw material in the United States and Canada, North America, but California has 2.5 billion pounds of material that goes through the rendering plants in California. I revert back to the fat fraction now of our finished products. Traditionally, they have gone into feed, and they've gone into the oleochemical industry for industrial uses. It's kind of interesting too, with California's desire to grow the biofuels industry. Those fats that have traditionally gone into to feed now are being consumed by the biodiesel and the biodiesel markets in California, as well as other states across the country. It's great because the rendering industry, when we meet on a national basis with our association, they're always like, what's California doing? What's California doing? And like Matt referred to earlier in his presentation, California has been very, very progressive on their use of dairy feed and other types of feed. And everybody is kind of in awe of what California does. So they're always concerned with the direction that California is going with their laws and their regulations. Next slide, please, Rachel. Like I said, 2 billion plus pounds in California of co-products or byproducts that are recycled in the state. And it's funny because when I started in this industry about 30 years ago, there were 17 rendering plants up and down the state. I mean, you couldn't swing a cat without hitting a rendering plant. Well, now, because of industry consolidation, urban encroachment, now there's only like 3 or 4 companies left. And fortunately for the animal agricultural industry, those rendering plants are geographically set to handle the majority of the territory in California to fulfill the needs of the food processing and animal agriculture industry. I mentioned to you earlier that there is a fat or an oil fraction of our finished product. There's also a protein fraction, but 50% of the materials that we bring in are moisture. It's just moisture that is contained within the product. Now, with California being riddled in drought for, it seems now, like decades, the rendering industry is embarking on a research projects that will take that wasted water that would either have to go down a sewer or be land applied, extract the nitrogen out of that would-be water, and use that as an organic input in fertilizer. So the rendering industry throughout its tenure has really been creative, as the feed industry, creative in finding new uses for the products that they pick up. Mentioned here on this slide that the pet food market is still vital, and the animal feed industry is still, like Matt said, with the large amount of the dairy herds that we have in California, it's still a viable sector. I mentioned to you that the biofuels industry is taking off not only in California, but also across the country and across the world. And I mentioned to you earlier about the oleochemical industry. You know, there's a lot of elements to these fat molecules that are contained in the oil that we produce. The fat molecules go to what they call oil splitters, and they split out these different ingredients in these fat molecules and use them in many products that we come in contact with every day. Rendered products in soap, paints, varnishes, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, shaving cream, you name it. You can't come in contact with you can't go through a day in your life without coming in contact with products that are comprised of rendered products. One thing that I would like to mention, Rachel, next slide, please, is that the rendering industry is really trying to be a partner in accomplishing and achieving all the goals set out by 1383. And so we are in talks and communication with solid waste programs up and down the state of California to increase their ability to comply with the new regulations. And we're working with partners in the waste industry to pick up and process residential cooking oils that would go down a drain or go in the garbage. And we're trying to be a solution in 1383. And we're happy to partner with anybody that really needs the help. So that's all I have, Rachel. Thank you.
Hey, Rachel, you're on mute.
Thank you. Really interesting information there, Michael. I think it's an industry that typically operates in behind the scenes. So thank you again for educating us on that, and also talking about some ways that the rendering industry can help support SB 1383 goals. Okay, so from there, we're going to move on to David Eisen from Imperial Western Products. Hi, David.
Hi,
Thank
good morning.
you for joining us. So David is a vice president for Imperial Western Products and their 32 green divisions dedicated to upcycling non-traditional byproducts into commodities and alternative fuels. And David has been working in the recycling and alternative marketplace for the past 9 years. He's a subject matter expert on 1383 implementation and compliance, with a focus on recycling, actually upcycling organics into animal feed. So thank you, David, for taking us through this pathway today. I'll hand it over to you. And again, anybody who has any questions coming up during any of these presentations, please put them in the question and answer, and our panel can answer them right after David's presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, Rachel and Diversion Strategies for having us and letting me speak today. Let's get going. All right, so I work for a very unique company. Like Michael said earlier, we've been in business since 1966, third generation family owned business. What we do here is we're a commodity and trading firm. We're also an animal feed manufacturer, and we're a renderer. So what we've been doing is we've been upcycling this material since 1966 and turning it into animal feed. And as of 20-something years ago, we are one of the largest biodiesel manufacturing plants in the West Coast. So we do roughly 13 million gallons per year. So we take the used cooking oil from restaurants and then we upcycle that into biodiesel. So IWP is located in 6 states with 7 locations in California. Coachella is our headquarters, which is where our biodiesel manufacturing plant is that we're doing 13 million. All their locations are animal feed manufacturing, wastewater treatment. So we could take that, handle it, treat it, and put it back into the aquifer and recapture that water, and recycling a lot of organic material before SB1383 and AB1826 was implemented, which I'll go into further next. So as we all know, and the reason why we're on the phone call today, or the webinar, is AB1826 and SB1383 is here, right? So January 1st, 2022 is going to be the kickoff, really. People have to have programs, are working towards them. Fines are just being discussed about being implemented. Obviously, there's a lack of infrastructure, and there's just a lack of time, really. So companies like IWP have been working and already working, have the infrastructure to handle all these products for California. So what we do here is IWP last year alone, just to give you some simple math, is we did 700,000 tons of material diverted from landfill last year. So that being fruits and vegetables from grocery stores, just like Matt was talking about, some of the largest retailers in the world, theme parks, and restaurants. So what we've been doing for the last 15 years is we've been partnering with our customers and diverting that from landfill, making that into animal feed. As we all know, and the reason why we're on the call as well is there's not a lot of money out there, and there's a lack of infrastructure. There's going to be, by 2025, 27 million tons of material that's going to be going to landfill, which is organic material. The animal feed, CDFA rendering space where you can upcycle this material, there's already infrastructure in place. Roughly right now, there's a capacity of 12.5 million additional tons that in California animal feed can take on. So what we do here, and everybody on the call, is we follow the EPA food recovery hierarchy. So what that means is the EPA's came out and said from top to bottom, this is the best for the environment. So what IWP has done before AB 1826 and SB 1380 compliance is we've done source reduction, which means we're educating our customers, theme parks, grocery stores, restaurants, and the like, food manufacturers, and we teach them, why are you throwing away so much, right? Why is ABC Bakery on Fifth Avenue in California, Southern California, throwing away twice as much as ABC Bakery in Sacramento, right? It has the same exact sales volume, but why? So what we do is, with our analytics and proprietary software, we've partnered with cities and our customers, and we tell them how you're throwing things away, you know, how to purchase things correctly. A lot of it's seasonality, right? So we just went through Halloween. So one of the largest retailers in the world, when we first started out, they were at 16 tons per store per week. Now they're at 6, right? So what we've done is we've taken that 10-ton reduction over the last 15 years, and then you can multiply that for every store. And that's the GHG reduction that we've been doing with our largest customers before it was AB 1826 or SB 1383 mandated through California. Like we talked about as well, feeding animals is third on the list. Obviously, source reductions 1, 2, feeding hungry humans, which is, we work with food banks, so we can always upcycle that material if it's edible for human consumption, which is the best, right? We don't want to take it away from humans, which we don't. But then at that point where it becomes expired, off spec, there's something wrong with it. So we come in and do product destruction, and we turn that into animal feed. So animal feed is number 3 on the EPA food recovery hierarchy. And that's where we did last year 700,000 tons of animal feed. And then the third on the list, which is what Michael Kohler, Sacramento Rendering, and IWP, which is biotain fuels, is rendering. I'm not going to go into rendering. Michael did a fantastic job of that. But like we said, we take all that used cooking oil, fats, oils, greases, meats, and we turn that back into fuel, which is 87% cleaner burning than traditional diesel. and it gets blended in. So everything right now in California pumps are 10% biodiesel, which is from Imperial Western products, and industrial uses. So soaps, lubricants, some of the products that we make on the back end, we recycle absolutely everything we get from Imperial Western products. So if you take used cooking oil and you take it and turn it into biodiesel, you'll have a byproduct of glycerin. And glycerin is really, really good for soaps and lubricants. So then we have a soaps and lubricants division where we make products. So by the time we get material, there's nothing left over and nothing's going into landfill. Like we talked about the source reduction, we provide analytics to cities, and our customers, and we've been doing that before it was legislation. So what we do is, I'll go into the next slide and show you what examples that we do. So with our customers, we're going to give them analytics of how to handle their products. And obviously you want to trend downwards, not upwards or flat. So a lot of our customers for the first year are a little all over the place because they're learning to right size their purchasing on the front end. 60% of whatever going to a grocery store usually gets thrown away. So 40% is the only amount that actually gets purchased or eaten. So you can imagine how much waste is behind a grocery store and food manufacturing plants. And like I said, we're pretty diverse here. We do grease traps, used cooking oil collection. So we're vertically integrated, meaning we don't just collect used cooking oil, or we don't just make biodiesel. We actually collect it ourselves with our own trucks and employees, and we process it, manufacture it, and sell it in-house. So there is, we have the best pricing. Same thing with animal feed. We collect it, we manufacture it, and we sell it as well. And then, as Matt was talking about, is the amount of GHG reduction, right? So Matt is correct that whatever is being fed right now in California, typically 80% of that is going to be a byproduct. So every time you have to manufacture an acre of grass or hay or feed and truck it in from wherever in the Midwest, all the GHG emissions, the water to grow it, the land to have it grown, can all be recaptured, and we're upcycling that. And this, the cool part is, like Matt has already talked about, we are already capturing everything in state. We have 12.5 million additional capacity. So if you look at 2025, 27 million tons is going to be in landfills. So if we are using animal feed, which Rachel already said, 14 CCR section 17402.5, Kohler cycle in July of this year just implemented rendering, and animal feed is definitely counted towards the version of under SB 1383. I know that was a mouthful, sorry about that. But we're very, very excited. Kohler cycle and Rachel Wagner is their new director. They're very forward thinking. The CDFA is, and Sam and her team has done a great job of working with local cities and Kohler cycles to capture all the data and to ensure that all the hard work that Michael's 4th generation family and IDP's 3rd generation family, all the information that we're already doing, the infrastructure is there, we're already doing it, is being captured, and we're giving that back to cities and municipalities in California for diversion credit, which is fantastic. And the good part is, these are commodities and byproducts. We don't see them as trash, right? So for the most part, we could buy this material from a small mom and pop restaurant or food manufacturer, and we actually purchase the material from them instead of them getting charged tens of thousands of dollars for landfill disposal costs. They're actually now making generation of monetary value on the back end. So obviously COVID-19, everything like that, we definitely love to cut those checks to our customers and assist them. It's been a rough year, but when you're looking at something in a different light and you see it as a commodity and not a trash, we can do some pretty amazing things. So what we've done here, and there's been some forward thinking as well. So these are just a couple cities, not all of them. So if I left them off the list, I apologize. But a lot of cities are putting in animal feed exemptions, or what they'll do is they'll say niche recycling. So Some of these, we generate that same exact report that we've already shown you, I think on slide 8. And we give that data to the city and or our customers. So then they have something to report back to Cal Recycle. So I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, David, for that overview. And nice family picture there too. If all of our panelists can come back with their videos on, we're going to go ahead and do a Q&A with the panelists. Okay, great. I think that we have everybody here. So I know Erin has been monitoring the Q&A, so she's going to go ahead and facilitate it today.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, and thank you to our panelists. Really good information and great presentations. For any of the participants watching, please feel free to ask any questions of any of our panelists through the Q&A function. Also, if there's any questions or you want to get in touch with anybody following this webinar, feel free to email us at info@diversionstrategies.com and we will get you in touch. Really great diversity of attendees on today's webinar. So we thank you all for joining us today. Really good question, the Q&A from John, which I think is a nice tie-in with this solution to how do we get it there. And I think, this was submitted just before, I think, Matt's presentation, but I'd like to get the perspective of all of you because you all kind of deal with different aspects of this traditional, these traditional recycling methods, which is collection points and the material flow to end users. I think that might be a really, really interesting perspective on the material flow here and getting it, the feedstock in, and then getting the final products out.
Yeah, I'll start. So from our standpoint as a company, there's a lot of homework that has to be done up front before you start with a lot of products. You'll need to, we'll go tour a facility and look at the loadout options, because the equipment that we have is unique that we use to haul it off. So whether you're in a walking floor, a belt trailer, an end dump, a side dump, flatbed, I mean, everything, tanker, there's a lot of different types of trucking, and you have to make sure you have the proper setup at the facility. And a lot of times, if it's worth enough to us, we'll help them build out their loadout facility. The other thing that's critical is when they're building the loadout is you have to make sure that it doesn't, you don't get in the way of their primary purpose. So, for example, we do, as a company, we do the back end work for Bolthouse Farms. So, when they're pressing carrots to make juice or whatever, we have to make sure that we're not, our equipment, our trucks are not, creating an issue for their primary business, right? And a lot of these plants also have limited capacity. So they might only be able to store 4 to 5 loads a day, but they might create 40. And so you've got to have timely trucking to get in and out so you don't shut the plant down. That's part of the service that goes along with it. And then to keep costs down, you really have to, most of these products need to go directly, that I handle. I know a lot of them are further processed, but the stuff that I handle needs to go directly to the end user at that point in time in order to keep freight costs, transportation, all the rest, down, so there's an affordable feedstuff for the animal.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The cool thing with Imperial Western is being vertically integrated and having 32 divisions in 6 states, that we can plug and play almost any equipment and we can move quickly. So with us, the infrastructure is there. We've been here for 55 years, and all we need to do is buy more equipment. That's really to keep up with as much. And we're extremely busy right now, obviously, with 2022 coming up. But yeah, I mean, the only thing is, obviously, staffing is difficult, but then all we need to do is get equipment. And right now, that's kind of a difficult time. just waiting to get anything with getting things off the boats or waiting for material to come in. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of companies like IWP and like Michael Kohler, and these guys can move quickly. We've already been in business, and it's just mostly just adding containers or adding, trucks, just however fast somebody can manufacture it, we can start recycling because everything's already available. Infrastructure's there, land's owned, everything's paid off, we're ready to go.
Wonderful. Great.
Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
Not much, Rachel, but I will say that the rendering industry has a wide array of receptacles for restaurants to hold the used cooking oil until a renderer can pick it up. And it also has a lot of different options for supermarkets and butcher shops to store those fat and bones and outdated meats, rotisserie chicken in coolers, so it won't decompose, won't be an odor issue, and still be in good shape to maximize its value once it's processed at the rendering facility. And I would just encourage everybody to reach out to their local renderers and see, how they can help you meet the goals that are set out.
Yeah, I mean, I know, what's really challenging right now for local governments is the cost of implementing SB 1383 and the rate increases on organics collection. So if some of your customer base can achieve organics recycling through these pathways, what David and Michael and Matt are saying is that it's goes from an expense to the business to an actual potential revenue stream selling this material through these pathways. So if you're looking for cost effectiveness, efficiency, and to ultimately reduce the impact of organics recycling on your customer base, it's certainly something to look into, is contacting those people in your local jurisdictions that provide this service. Erin, what else we got?
Yeah, I think along those lines, Michael, kind of follow up on something you touched on in your presentation. You had talked about residential kitchen grease collection. Is that happening anywhere already? And what would be needed to kind of support a program like that?
Yeah, Erin, we have been doing that for a number of years in different or smaller municipalities in Northern California. But it's a very unique way to capture more diversion of would-be wasted co-products. So yes, we've been doing it for a while, and it's going to, as implementation of 1383 goes into effect, it's going to be more and more prevalent up and down the state.
Thank you. We have another question from the Q&A. Dan asked, how is our ag industry trending on replenishing productive fields with organics versus landfill? I think, Matt, I'm going to throw this one to you. I think you might have touched on this a little bit.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how's our ag industry trending on replenishing productive fields with organics versus landfill?
I would say that as an industry, we're trending pretty well in that regard. When you look at organics, like I said, I touched on a lot of the different products that are created. I don't know the exact percentage that we're capturing right now, but especially if you're in the Central Valley, all the way up through from Sacramento, I would say down through LA. It's a very high rate. I mean, we've got to be over 90% in the upcycling of the organics that are created in our croplands. The infrastructure is there. The problem that you get into if you're a little bit further north or further south is you don't have as readily available a consumer, whether it's a dairy or a beef animal or whatever you're going to send that product to. So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. The further you have to go, the less likely the math works on getting that product there and having it be an affordable feedstuff.
All right, great, thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? All right. Well, I think we just have about 3 more minutes left on our webinar today. Before we wrap up, just want to do a quick little roundtable with our panelists of any parting thoughts, and then we'll get wrapped up.
No, I appreciate you letting us speak, and obviously we're very much excited with CalRecycle and CDFA and CGFA and all the members that have already been working towards this problem for decades are all now coming together. That's really, really cool to see CalRecycle and CDFA partner, and all the other companies that are on the call. We are competitors, but we do work with each other and sit on the same boards. And we're just looking forward to assisting California divert as much organic material. I'm very pleased with the progress with local cities and municipalities being forward thinking and creating less restrictive franchise agreements, obviously, because they see this as a commodity and it's not interfering, right? There's obviously a surplus of material and a lack of infrastructure. There's no reason to fight about it. And we're very, very much appreciative to everybody's hard work, and look forward to a really fun 2022.
Thanks, David.
2022 is coming up quickly. Well, again, thank you to our panelists and our attendees for joining us today. This is just the first part of a 2-part series. So while today you learned about these pathways and the material types, we will be back to talk about how can your local jurisdiction support these programs, implement these programs, and work with the organizations to provide other means of organics recycling in your jurisdiction to your customers. So that will be on December 9th, again, Thursday at 11 a.m. We're going to be holding it those days at that time, moving forward. So you guys don't forget. And we're really looking forward to that. So in the meantime, look for your email. We'll be in touch with other things. Don't forget about the grants coming your way for implementation of 1383. Really great stuff, guys. Let's get that to the best possible place. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. And if you have any questions, you know who to contact. Catch us on LinkedIn. You'll see this recording on YouTube, and see y'all next time. Bye-bye.